Welcome to a hometown television special, Inside the Paper Mill, Behind the Curtain. My name is Fred Honold, and we will have 3 segments with the leadership team of the paper mill, individually and then together. And we're starting here with producing artistic director Mark S. Hoebee. Mark,
Hi.
Pleasure to be with you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Good, yeah. I've enjoyed our conversation so much leading up here to this discussion.
Me as well.
And here, Paper Mill has, from 2007 on the verge of bankruptcy, just become probably the lead regional throughout the U.S., launching so many shows into Broadway. And yet, it's your personal story that we want to talk about today.
Okay, sure.
In terms of originally a Jersey boy who has been all over the stage, behind it, in front of it.
Yeah.
And here you are today. We're most fortunate to have you.
Well, I'm happy to be here. Yes, I am a Jersey boy at heart. I grew up in Freehold, went to Freehold High School, and went away to school at Northwestern in Chicago, lived in New York for many years, and then came back home here where I live. I live in Glen Ridge with my partner, Larry, who is works for CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley,
Right.
and our 2 kids, Stephen and Ashley.
Very nice. Very proud of both your children. I understand Stephen is looking for colleges right now.
Yes,
Common parent experience.
I said yes. I said my whole life I always wanted to be a dad, even way back before I think anybody thought it was possible for gay men to create a family. So yeah, I feel really, really lucky. My kids are wonderful. I say I'm kind of the luckiest person in the world. I get to go to work every day at a job I love. It's challenging at times, but with a staff of people who work really, really hard and a crew who are dedicated. And then I get to go home to a very, very loving family. So.
Which is nice, right? That makes all the difference. And,
Absolutely.
you know, with your own children, and one of the first times I had seen you most recently was at the Paper Mill 75th, where you were basically getting all the high schoolers ready for a presentation that night in front of a pretty demanding crowd.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of what Paper Mill does. We have a huge education department, a theater school, a summer conservatory program, adopt-a school outreach programs. That's very important to us. I think educating kids, guiding them, taking care of them, and using the arts as a platform to do that, to build their confidence, their self-esteem, their poise, that's an honor. And I'm very invested in that. Like I said, I always wanted to be a dad, and I'm a dad at home. I also feel like I'm a dad at work, although those kids I don't have to pay for their college or bring them home.
So you're a father to many in that way.
Yes, father to many, but I take that role very seriously, and it's an honor to do it.
Right. Take us back to your early days, because your life story is a fascinating one in terms of when a variety of things happened. Rather than thinking a window was shut, doors opened into whole new worlds.
You and I had talked about that a little bit before we came on air, which is a few weeks ago I moderated a panel. The topic was the culture of yes, which can mean many things. But as I look back now over my life and my career and also my family and social life, you can sort of find those forks in the road that have led me to where I am now. But at that time, I never could have imagined where I was going to go. And here I am as producing artistic director of one of the nation's leading musical theaters. We've moved in the last 5 years 4 shows to Broadway, 2 opening this year. You know, we were awarded the Regional Theater Tony Award last year. It's incredible. But when I started out, I never thought I would be a theater administrator. In fact, I really didn't want to go into show business. That wasn't a dream of mine. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a gymnast, an Olympic gymnast. And when I was about 13, I think one of my gym teachers said I had an aptitude for it and encouraged my parents to pursue that. So I went and took some classes in Matawan at Alt's Gymnastics Academy and very quickly made their team, which was coached by a man named Leonid, who had defected from Russia and was Olga Korbut's former coach. One of the all-time greats. Yeah. So it was a serious thing. She had just won the 72 Olympics, and this was like 1973. And that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought, I've got my eye on the Olympics. That was my passion. I went 5-6 days a week. And then I sustained an injury, which nowadays it was a torn meniscus. No, that's not a career-ending injury. But at the time, we didn't know anything. I lived in I went to a small town hospital. They said, okay, you need to give this up. It's too dangerous. You could really hurt yourself. So I was kind of crestfallen. I didn't know what to do. And my mom knew that there was an audition coming up for a local community theater, a production of West Side Story. And I'd done some singing in school and stuff.
Right.
She took me to the Petty School in Hightstown to audition. She still says she was very nervous sitting outside in the car and listening to all these people sing. And she didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to do either. And I landed the role of Baby John. And it really changed my perspective on things. I loved it. I loved being part of an ensemble in a show. All those skills I had as a gymnast, balance, agility, flexibility, really translated easily into the dance world. But I had no experience. I had no training. And so I got through that. And then there was an idea in my mind that I kind of liked it, but I didn't really have it as a driving force. And then I think it was the next summer, I was 15 years old, a friend of mine said, we're going into New York to see a Broadway show. Do you want to go? My mom's organizing a trip. This is my friend Nancy Anderson. And I said, okay, what's it about? She said, oh, it's this great show. It's about dancers and what happens off stage and their backstories and their lives. And I thought, wow, that sounds really boring. I didn't really think that was going to be fun. And of course, it was Chorus Line, and it was the original company. We sat in the top of the balcony of the Schubert Theater.
Right.
And I remember this very clearly. On the bus on the way home, I turned to Nancy and I said, that's what I'm going to do. She said, what? And I said, I'm going to be a dancer on Broadway. She kind of laughed. She said, you have no experience, you have no training, 15 years old, it's a little late. And I said, no, I really think that's what I want to do. And so that became my focus at that time.
So in a way, two moms, your own and this other mom,
Yeah.
sent you off on a whole new path.
Totally new path. And then, you go through the college thing, and
Right.
I'm very, very fortunate to wind up at Northwestern University in Chicago, although probably shouldn't have. I applied late to the wrong school. They lost my transcript. But again, another strange moment in time, and I wound up there. And that's really where I started to develop my passion and my love for theater, and really started to hone my skills as a dancer. But again, my dream was just to dance in the chorus of a
Just to
Broadway show.
dance. Oh.
Everybody else wanted to be, don't you want to be the star of the show? Or friends of mine went off to California. I went to school with Julie Louis-Dreyfus and Mark Helgenberger, and they all looked at me like I was crazy, but that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to be a dancer.
Was there a moment in Chorus Line that suddenly it hit you? Was there a number? Was it something about the energy?
It was interesting. It was the idea that being part of the whole was bigger than you as an individual. That it was so important that each of those characters was an individual, but that they worked together as a team. And growing up, I was on the gymnastics team, but I never participated I wasn't on the soccer team or the football team. So I didn't have that unified team experience.
Right.
And understanding that the chorus of a show is that. It is the team behind the star. And once I got to experience that, it was incredibly powerful to understand that your individual contribution is greater when all those people around you are working together.
It's a wonderful life philosophy.
Yeah, it has served me well. Being part of a team and trying to work together, engage all those people around me, and I'm still a big one of the best idea in the room wins. Doesn't have to be my idea.
I like that.
Let's try to find the best way to all of us move forward.
Your mom didn't realize what she was setting in motion.
I guess not.
So what happens from Northwestern?
Well, at Northwestern, I graduated and lived in Chicago for a while, started working as a performer, performed on a bunch of national tours, got to work with some incredible people. I toured with Richard Harris and Camelot, and worked with Bob Fosse on his last show, with Gwen Verdon, a production of Sweet Charity that was out. And then eventually moved to New York and started dancing on Broadway. I worked with Jerome Robbins, made my Broadway debut in Jerome Robbins' Broadway, Rob Marshall, Susan Stroman, worked with Julie Andrews and Victor Victoria. But at the same time, I had a career going in Chicago as a choreographer. And again, this was not planned. It was more out of survival. When I wasn't working as a performer in New York,
Right.
I would try to get a job directing, choreographing in Chicago. But I was frustrated as a choreographer. It was very difficult for me. I wasn't one of those people that steps came flying out of my feet. I agonized over 8 counts and was up all night trying to figure out one sequence. And one day I was working at a theater in Chicago called the Marriott Lincolnshire, and the producer there, Kerry Walker, Southern guy, said to me, "You know why you're frustrated as a choreographer?" And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because you think like a director." And that was an awakening for me. I didn't realize that, and we talked about
a
it.
huge insight.
It was huge on his part. And as I thought about it, and we talked about it, he said, you approach movement from a character point of view. You talk to people like they're actors. Your choreography speaks in a way that a director speaks to actors. And so he said, "How would you like to direct a show for us?" And I thought, well, sure.
Wow.
So I directed a production of 42nd Street, and that really turned on a light bulb for me. I thought, this is where I should be, in this chair.
Could you feel that during the course of the direction, all of a sudden those analytical abilities came to the fore? And
Not
it
the
felt
first
right?
time. The first time, mostly what I felt was fear.
Okay, it's honest.
Well, because I had no experience with it. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was flying a lot by the seat of my pants.
Mm-hmm.
But the good thing is, and I think this is important, whatever mode you're in, or whatever, when you're faced with a decision or you're in a situation, if you try to choose what feels positive and good for you, hopefully that moves you forward. And that's always been at my core. I try to be as positive as possible. I try to choose the right way to go. I try to treat people kindly, not because I expect anything, but because I think it's the right way to be. And it served me well. And that's what happened in directing. After a couple of shows, I realized, okay, this is really what I love to do. Now, I'm thinking back as a gymnast or a dancer or a choreographer, I never thought that was where it was going to lead. But it was a great basis to have as a choreographer, then to become a director, because I think I have sort of a global viewpoint of things. I can look at a show as a whole. I can step back and say, this number needs to really land, or there needs to be a punch in this scene, and the arc of the whole show needs to work together. So that's been a great, I think, asset of mine as a director.
Right, and so you see that full picture,
Yeah.
but you know the power of movement throughout.
Yeah.
Choreography in a whole different way.
In a whole different way. I love to talk about numbers and musical numbers and how they should move and how they'll help forward the motion of the story, and then not have to figure out what every step and every count is, because that's not my forte. So to work with partners, friends of mine like Dennis Jones and Joanne Hunter, who are on Broadway right now with Holiday and School of Rock, they think the way I do. They are choreographers, but they're also directors in their minds. So we talk a similar language. We're able to, the lines blur. And then, like I said before, the best work comes out. I love when people say to me, who are in the role of choreographer, in this scene, why doesn't she blah, blah, blah? Oh, if it's a great idea, I'm going to use it. Then I'll happily say to you, in that number, I wish there was more focus on this. So for the best result, that's the goal, right?
So in a way, it's much like an orchestra conductor.
Yeah.
Having to pull all the piece parts
All the
together.
individual parts together so that the whole symphony comes together.
So of all that you've directed, what's your favorite and most memorable, and why?
Okay, well, my favorite production of all time that I've ever directed was our recent production of West Side Story.
Okay.
And I think that's because, well, going back, it was the first show I ever really did.
Okay.
But I think it's one of the strongest pieces in the American musical theater canon. The message is never lost, especially in this moment we are now with differences of people, and how do we get beyond what's different about us to find what's most similar about us. And then an incredible score, great Jerome Robbins dancing. I mean, we had the best cast ever. It was incredible.
Right.
One of my proudest moments.
Now, here at the Paper Mill, the reputation only grows. And all of a sudden, you're launching all these major productions
Right.
across the country and
Yeah.
across the river, if you will. Right?
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
What's happening?
Well, there's been a renaissance at Paper Mill, as you referred to earlier. In 2007, we experienced a terrible crisis. We almost went out of business. And then we've had to re-look at our entire organization. And what I tried to do right at the beginning when I took over in 2008 was break down the walls and invite in other artists. I knew we couldn't do it alone. We needed partnerships. We needed to partner with the Township of Melbourne. We needed to partner with other arts organizations. We needed to partner with other not-for-profit theaters. And I started seeking out partnerships with commercial partners in New York City. And that's what sort of changed the business model and led us to these incredible world premiere projects that have brought us great acclaim, made us financially secure, and allowed us to be represented on Broadway. We have 2 shows opening on Broadway this year: A Bronx Tale, the musical, which opens on December 1st, and then in the spring, Bandstand. Both were world premieres in our last season at Paper
That's
Mill.
amazing.
So yeah, it's pretty
So in a
incredible.
way, you're this way of thinking about directing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Now you're thinking far beyond the paper mill.
Well, it's funny too that we talk about not knowing where your life's going to lead you, and I never thought I'd be a theater administrator. I never dreamed that would ever happen, but an opportunity arose. You know, I was brought into Paper Mill at a time when my son was young. I was directing, choreographing regionally, and I needed to settle down. I had an opportunity to perhaps go back to Northwestern and be the associate chair of their musical theater department. And at the same time, Paper Mill offered me an opportunity to come on board with the staff there. And after much discussion with my partner, we decided that that was the best opportunity. And so during the crisis, when many people were running away from the organization, I was holding on really tightly for a lot of reasons. One, I had a son, I had a family, I love New Jersey, and I knew Paper Mill had promise. I just didn't know, I couldn't let it go. And I believed that there was a future for Paper Mill. I didn't know what it was going to be, but I believed that there was a need for it in the community and that there were glory days to come. And so, you know, we've worked really hard over these last years to develop the new working method for the theater. And as that has happened, I've also grown as an administrator and an artistic director and a director and now a producer. And, you know, so yeah, again, you never know where life's going to take you.
Your children are fortunate, your partner's fortunate. In the couple of minutes we have remaining,
Sure.
what advice would you pass on to somebody starting out in the business?
In the theater business?
Yes.
I would say be humble, be respectful. Many young people now don't realize how small the theater community is. And there's unfortunately a sense of entitlement about youth today. And I can absolutely trace my entire career back to my very first dance teacher, who I used to call Miss Rose, Rosemary Boros. And in those moments and in those relationships, and whether it's working with Rosemary Boros or my mentor at Northwestern, Dominic Nassimi, or Kerry Walker, or Alan Menken, or Thomas Schumacher from Disney, I try to be incredibly respectful and positive about those relationships, and that has led to great opportunity. You can't afford to burn any bridge. You can't.
Great advice. It says it all. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you so
pleasure.
much. Great to talk to you.
Good. So a special thanks to Mark Hoebee. Our next segment will be with Managing Director of Paper Mill Playhouse, Todd Schmidt.
There are more than 20,000 cities and towns in our country. Welcome to one of America's greatest towns, Millburn, USA.
Fred Honold with Hometown with our 3-part segment, Paper Mill Playhouse, Behind the Curtain, here with Managing Director, Todd Schmidt. Todd, pleasure to be with you.
Thanks, Fred. Great to
Good,
be here.
good. Here we've got one of the lead regional theaters in the country, one of the top 10s, a nonprofit who has distinguished itself, and you serve as Managing Director, pulling all the piece parts together of the economic engine. So we want to talk about what it is you do,
Okay.
but also your background, how you got here.
Sure. I started Well, I have three older sisters. My youngest sister, who's 8 years older than me, was involved in High School Musicals.
All right.
So as a babysitting technique, she would drag me along to these rehearsals, and I would sit and watch these high school kids who I thought were big, huge Broadway stars, and I would run around and get their autograph. So the bug for getting involved in theater bit me at about 8 years old.
Started early on.
And kind of lasted throughout. I had a different route getting there. Things changed. A lot of bends and curves in the road, but it's been something that's been part of my DNA since I was a child.
So you get this inspiration at 8.
Yeah.
What happens then through junior high and high school?
Well, I grew up outside Chicago, and then my family moved to Alabama. So when I was a kid, I had a ventriloquist dummy. I would perform in little talent shows at school. I would do things like that. Then when I got into high school and college, I started doing some acting. Then I started doing some directing. And so it kind of blossomed from there. And then I started learning about the business and the business side. I went to Auburn University in Alabama, and I was a business major, president of the School of Business.
Right.
But I was also heavily involved in the theater program. So I was doing theater, acting in shows, directing shows, kind of learning the back end, producing end of shows at that time. And so when I got out of Auburn, I thought, well, what am I going to do now? And I had kind of traditional business opportunities, but I knew I wanted to stay involved in theater. Acting wasn't for me, wasn't where I was interested, it wasn't where my talents were. So then I looked at directing. So I went to graduate school in Chicago, moved back to where I was kind of from or born outside Chicago, moved back to Chicago to go to the Goodman School of Drama, and got my Master of Fine Arts degree in directing. Then when we got out of school, like you do in Chicago, a bunch of young, kids just out of college, started our own theater company. And as we started the theater company, I would direct some of the shows, but I also knew how to balance a checkbook, which a lot of the other kids didn't.
Right.
They just wanted to be actors. They didn't care about finance. And I understood the financial edge of it. I knew how to write. I knew how to write a grant when those times came, when you're trying to, solicit people for donations to keep this business going. So I found myself more and more drawn to the business and producing side of the organization.
So you understood the economic engine.
Yeah, I
need for
understood
that,
the
right?
economics. I understood really it was the basics of finance that kind of have propelled me through this business. So you've got to have people, we need the artists who are the dreamers and the big thinkers and are pushing the envelope, and you need the people behind them to help say, hey, we can afford to do this, or we can't, or we could do it this way or that way. So somebody's got to look at the bottom line. So that's what I do.
And you, with a few other friends, launched your own theater company.
We did. We launched a theater in Chicago. We were successful. We had a show that got a lot of buzz right out of the gate. We all thought, this is fantastic.
We're on our way.
We're on our way. And we were on our way, but then we were a non-union theater, so we were all just out of school. None of us were in the business professionally yet. We were working day jobs. I was a waiter and a bartender. And as that organization kept on, we kept getting more professional, and then economically, we just couldn't sustain it. I mean, we weren't getting paid. We were doing it for nothing back then. But then we were all building careers in the business, and that involves a whole different level of finance and needs to keep up theater going.
Right.
And so at that point, I then moved off, and that group disbanded. We're all still friends, and
Good.
and many have gone on to some success.
But it's like a venture capitalist mindset, right? Launching
Launching
something
this
new.
entrepreneurial business.
So what happens from there?
From there, I worked in Chicago, worked at different theaters in Chicago. The last one kind of in Chicago was Chicago Shakespeare Theater, which is now another major theater. This was in the early days of that organization. There was an office of 3. It's now one of the biggest theaters in Chicago. And from there, I went to run a theater in Wisconsin. I was there for 15 years and had a great time with a theater called Peninsula Players Theater.
Okay.
Up in a beautiful resort area of northern Wisconsin called Door County. Fantastic. And then was looking around after having kind of accomplished everything I wanted to then for my next challenge, and ended up moving to New Jersey to work at George Street Playhouse in New Brunswick. And had a great time there, and some great people, learned a lot about New Jersey. And then the opportunity to go from a $4 million a year operation at George Street Playhouse to what at the time was about a $14, $15 million operation at Paper Mill Playhouse presented itself. and I didn't have to move. You know, I didn't have to move across country. I could stay in my house. I could just
It's nice.
commute in a different direction. So it was an easy choice for me at that time.
So as managing director, take us through the economics and the numbers of Paper Mill as a regional theater, the distinction with what a community theater is versus a regional, and really where you derive all the revenue from and the
Sure.
funding.
Paper Mill has been around since 1938. It's a long-standing regional theater, a professional theater, meaning that everybody who works for us is paid a professional salary.
Okay.
Our actors are members of a union, our directors and choreographers are in the union, our stagehands and crew is in the union, and then all the people who support the organization are also professional and do this as a career.
All right.
A community theater are great resources for local communities, but they're usually people who are doing what I did in my early days. Had a day job,
Right.
but at night are still putting on the show in the basement, and doing it just because they love the business and it's a creative outlet for them. As a regional theater, we're here really to impact our community and to present great work to the Millburn, Short Hills regional area and all of New Jersey and beyond. So Paper Mill now has a budget of about $19 million a year. We're one of the top 10 theaters in the country in terms of budget size. Of that, about $10 million of that comes from ticket sales. So we have a large, robust subscriber base,
Right.
over 21,000 subscribers, those people who sign up to see all of our shows throughout a season. We have a lot of single ticket buyers who will come and see 1, 2, or 3 during the season.
Right.
And then the rest of the money is made up through foundation support, corporate support, individual giving, and then some other business ancillary, gift shops, some of those things that don't produce a lot of money, but mainly it's through contributed revenue.
All right.
And that's the way, as a nonprofit theater, we're not here to make a profit, we're not here to lose money, we're here to serve the community. We're for justice, we're for society, we're for creating a better community for.
So in your space as a nonprofit, breaking even is a good thing. That's what
Breaking
you want
even
to
is
do.
a great thing, yeah.
Right.
We've been very successful. We've had 4 years of doing a little better than break even. And so that's the goal. We don't want to we're not here to lose money. We're here to break even and serve our community.
And
It's not about
reinvest.
making money. Those decisions are made in a different way. Broadway is about making money. We're here to do work and create new work and teach and educate and do all the things we do in our outreach and access services.
And yet as a nonprofit, you have this incredible affinity with Broadway and this connection and this partnership.
Well, we've had a great affinity recently with creating new shows. And again, we're in it to create new work and to help bring great artists into art theater to do their new work. And so that has meant partnering with some of those commercial entities that will eventually take the show to Broadway. And we've been very fortunate that we've had 4 shows recently that have opened at Paper Mill with eyes and thoughts about maybe making it into New York, but no guaranteed track. And because of the work we were doing at Paper Mill and the success they had there, the commercial producer, the people we partnered with, then took it on and have run on Broadway. We have 2 opening, one opening in December and one opening next spring. So it's been a remarkable run.
That has to be a wonderful feeling to see what you've created being launched.
Absolutely.
with more to follow.
It's the best feeling.
Yeah.
To create new work that is appealing to our community and then goes out and gets shown all over the country. We're doing The Bodyguard right now, which is going to be running from Thanksgiving through New Year's. That's a new production that was started in England. This will be the American premiere. So we're doing it for 5.5 weeks in Millburn, and then it's going to leave us and tour the country for a year on the road with Deborah Cox playing the Whitney Houston movie. It's from the Whitney Houston, Kevin Costner movie.
Yes, yes.
It's a musical filled with all these great Whitney Houston tunes. And it's going to go out now and play all over the country, and everywhere it plays on the title page of that program, it'll say originally premiered Paper Mill Playhouse, Millburn, New Jersey.
Right. And this ripple effect, this national reputation that is solidifying as well as international.
Absolutely. Those things have all led to all the recognition Paper Mill's had, and in a sense, our audiences have been so supportive of this new work. They're hungry and excited by these new things. And so we've built an audience that's looking for new and exciting and adventurous work, and it certainly has led to seeing an increase number of people involved in the organization, increased donations to support that work and the work in our education and access programs. So, you know, we've been really riding a nice wave right now.
It's a wonderful wave, yeah.
Yeah.
Now take us through some distinctions. Regional, one of the top 10 regionals, but different than the other 9. You have about 1,200 people you can sit in an audience, 250,000 a year,
Yeah.
but you're in Millburn and not in a big city.
Well, it is one of the unique things. If you looked at the list of those top 10 regional theaters in terms of budget size, most all of them are in major metropolitan cities: Chicago, New York, Atlanta, Denver, Los Angeles, Seattle. You know, big metropolitan communities. We're the only one in a small town, and it speaks volumes to the support, certainly of our local community,
Right.
Millburn and beyond, that this big theater, one of the biggest in the country, is here in this beautiful suburban sylvan setting. Most of the other theaters are in concrete jungles in downtown. And
Right.
you know, if you go to the Goodman Theater in Chicago or you go to Roundabout Theater in New York, you're driving into the city and you're dealing with the excitement and the pluses and minuses to go with that. You got to
Well
park,
said.
you got to go through the tunnel, you got
Yeah.
to do all that. When you come to Millburn, it's a beautiful sylvan environment, and it affects the audience and the actors and the artists. You know, they love working with us
The
because
environment.
it's a different environment than they see so many times in their career.
And another distinction is Paper Mill, say, versus NJ Pack. 2 different business models.
Two completely different business models. Paper Mill is we bring things, shows, and create them from the ground up. Our shows run 5 to 6 weeks. We create the costumes, we create the new work, and it runs for 6 or 8 weeks, 8 performances a week. The other kind of model are places like NJ Pack or the Mayo Center or the State Theater in New Brunswick, and those are roadhouses. Those are houses where the product has been created somewhere else, like a paper mill or somewhere else, and then tours and stops there for a night or two. Still very valuable to the community to bring in things that are happening around the country. We are an incubator. We're a creator. We create the work and start the work and build it from the ground up.
So when you think about it, that's the toughest of all jobs, the creation, right?
It is. It's the riskiest.
It is the riskiest.
You know, you can book in Willie Nelson and know how much Willie Nelson's going to sell.
Right.
You have no idea how a new play that nobody's ever heard of called The Bandstand that we did last fall is going to play here or beyond. And now, because of the success and the great response it had in Millburn, it's going to open on Broadway in the spring. You know, an unknown title about a group of World War II veterans coming
Right.
back and forming a band. Nobody'd ever heard of it.
Right. And yet here it goes from Paper
Here
Mill
it goes, right. That's the
to
most
Broadway.
exciting thing.
Yeah. Take us through, if you would, an example, say, of your favorite success as to, and I know you're a team with Mark, right?
Sure.
But as a managing director, how do you think through that equation? What do you see, if you had to pick one of your shows, what's the favorite one that you've taken from A to Z? From the creation onto Broadway?
Sure. When I got to Paper Mill, I think our first big success, and the first time Paper Mill had taken a musical to Broadway, was Newsies.
Okay.
We partnered with Disney Theatrical Group, great friends of ours who do, it's Disney. They have all the great work.
But you make it sound so simple. Managing director, how do you partner with Disney?
Well, Mark had a relationship. They were looking for a place to partner with the show. We developed the relationship, and we've
Right.
done many shows with Disney since then. But this being one of the early ones with
Okay.
Disney, it was a title that they just wanted to work on. It had been a movie, a failed movie in the 80s. They wanted to reinvigorate the title. They had a lot of requests from it, from the country, from other theaters saying, hey, what about Newsies as a musical? You made this great movie of it, was kind of a flop, but we really liked it and the idea of it. So Disney wanted to give it a try at a regional theater, and then their intention was to license it to other regional theaters around the country to do.
Okay.
So just, we'd do it, they'd get a new book, they brought in Harvey Fierstein to write the book, Alan Menken's great music, and then, they were just going to take it and let it go and have other theaters do it that wanted to do it on their own. Because of the success it had at Paper Mill, Disney, I think, was as surprised as we were. So they decided, hey, this show is fantastic. People love it. Let's take it into New York. So it went from Paper Mill directly to Broadway, played the Nederlander Theater on 41st Street, ran for 2 years, then toured the country for another 2 years.
So it eventually toured, but
It went to Broadway,
Went Broadway
and
first.
became a huge phenomenon in musical theater. It's a real success story of something that nobody had an idea would work on a stage because the movie had been a failure,
Right.
but not artistically, but I think economically. And it went on and is huge, and it's now being done all over the country by other regional theaters now that it's licensed for them to do their own production.
Yeah. And this is not just serendipity or happenstance. You have a formula that's launched 4 over to Broadway.
Yeah.
What do you do different? What do you do better? What is it that you do?
Well, I think we provide a great home and partnership for these people. We have great artistic resources. We have a great crew. We offer great opportunities for them. It's also a chance for people, and many of these people, the creators of new work, are New York centric, so they can work at Paper Mill and go home at night. You know, they can sleep in their own bed,
Right.
they can work in their own studios, they can think about the work in their own familiar environment. You know, if you go to Chicago or you go to San Diego or you go to Seattle, you're taking everybody out of town. There's certainly a cost to that, but there's also a familiarity. People like being able to create work and live at home. So I think we give people a great opportunity to do that. And also we bring those great talent to Milburn. I mean, Tony and Academy Award winning
Right.
composer teams. We've had Jason Robert Brown, Alan Menken, who wrote every big Disney musical that there is.
Right.
You know, are friends of ours and work in our buildings. So it's a great opportunity for us and for them and for our community.
And this regional Tony Award you have is just a further recognition of the great work.
It is. It's a wonderful recognition of the long history at Paper Mill, but certainly the great work we're doing and will continue to do now and in the future.
So community, relationships, and our closing couple of minutes here. Anybody that's looking to get into the business, on the business side
Sure.
of performing arts, what would you recommend?
Well, as opposed to when I came up, there weren't really business classes particular to theater. So I took economic classes and business law classes, and they were applicable to theater. But now a lot of programs will have performing arts management within their colleges and in their grad programs. I always say, though, the best way to get involved is to get out and get a job. I mean, I've worked in box offices, I have sold tickets, I have seated people, I have written press releases, you know, I've written donor applications, I've written grant requests. So the more you know about the business and the more you understand the creative side and the business side, I think the more successful you'll be. So practical education is great, and I value my education. Practical experience and getting out there and getting your feet wet and just doing it can't be beat. So look for an internship, look for an opportunity to work in a theater, and just pursue your dream.
Right. And it really, that education is really what's brought you here in terms of our managing director at Paper Mill
Yeah,
Playhouse.
it's been a lifelong career from an 8-year-old boy to sitting here today to being able to run one of the biggest theaters in the country. It's a great honor, and it makes me happy every day to get up and go to work.
It doesn't get any better than that.
No.
Well, for all that you do for our community, special thanks and congratulations on all the awards.
Oh, great.
And to the future, you know, all the best.
Thank you.
All right. So a special thanks to Todd Schmidt, Managing Director, Paper Mill Playhouse. Stay tuned for our third and final segment with Todd and Mark Hoebee. They're a leadership team that make the difference.
Here in Summit, New Jersey, Hometown TV is a hyper-local station and an integral part of the community, covering local events, government meetings, entertainment, and offering original programs. Hometown TV encourages you to tune into Verizon Channel 33, Comcast Channel 36, and our YouTube page to find out what's going on around town. Come in, volunteer, support, and keep up with the latest here at Hometown TV.
Fred Honold with Hometown Television. We are here, most fortunate to be honored by the leadership team of the one and only Paper Mill Playhouse in Milburn, New Jersey. And we have here our producing artistic director, Marcus Hoebee, and managing director, Todd Schmidt. Gentlemen,
Good to see you.
pleasure to be with you.
Great, nice to be here.
Now, I understand that as of June, you win the Regional Tony Award and are honored at the Beacon Theater over New York City.
Yes, but I have to say we didn't win it. We are the recipient of it. It is bestowed upon you.
That is very modest.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, it's true. Yeah, it's an incredible honor and something that people have talked about at Paper Mill for many, many, many years. But it's an interesting award because you can't lobby for it. You can't actively seek it. It is bestowed upon you and was an incredible honor for us and a spotlight on all the work we do, not only on the main stage, but also
I like
through our
that term,
education.
bestowed. Why? Why was it bestowed upon the paper mill at this point in time?
Well, I think, as Mark said, there's a long history at Paper Mill of 78 years of doing incredible work in a nonprofit regional theater. So it's a recognition certainly of the history and the longevity of Paper Mill, one of the longest regional theaters in the country, but also I think of the recent work and the new work that has been happening on our stage and that has gone on to success, and moved into New York and toured the country.
So it recognizes the present and the past
Yeah.
and anticipation of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's awarded it acknowledges the artistic work that you're presenting and the additions to the canon of musical theater, and so that's what not only musical theater but theater, and that's why we feel like an important part of the aspect of it is the premieres that we've been engaged in the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years.
Now, you've done phenomenal work with Paper Mill. I remember just about 10 years ago, I'm doing an interview out front of the theater with Mickey Fanani.
Oh yeah.
Beloved,
Yeah.
yes.
Wonderful woman.
Beloved. And as I'm wrapping up the interview, I'm getting word that the paper mill is going out of business the next day. You're going bankrupt.
Yeah, that's true. That must have been in February of 2007 or
That's when
sometime
it was.
around then. Yes, we went through a very difficult time. We affectionately refer to that time as the crisis. But the theater was many $1 million in debt. It was a business model that wasn't working at that time. And it came to light that we were about $3.5 million in debt and didn't have an active way to plug that hole. And so we actually took active steps with the support of our board of trustees. The staff went and spoke to the Star Ledger and really reached out to the community and said, we're in trouble. And if you value Paper Mill and our significance in the community, please come forward and help us. And that's what happened. A lot of individuals, starting with our education parents and the town officials came forward, our board stepped up, many people from all over the country came. It was a long process. But eventually what happened is the township became our benevolent landlord, purchased the land that we sit on, which we owned at that time. It was enough money to retire all of our debt and to give us a fresh start to start over.
Right. So in a way, in a curious way, it was the best thing that happened. But you used it to launch to become best in country.
Right.
So this business model that you have, what exactly is this business model that works so well and is taking you to higher and higher levels?
Well, I think as Mark said, it's starting with that bedrock of the town coming in and helping us out.
Right.
And then realizing that there was a need to change. Mark had been working, diligently before this to try to bring in artistic programming and kind of change the focus of the theater. And the success of that focus has certainly been reflected in the main stage. But throughout the organization, it kind of gave that moment of reset and
Yes.
restart. So looking at every part of the business and what we needed to do to survive in this new economy, in a new world, and it really gave us a whole fresh start. The education program has taken off as well as the main stage programming. Our donor base has grown, our subscriber base has grown. So it's really been the success of certainly the help of the town of Millburn, but all of our patrons and stakeholders who have stepped forward to say, this is a great place, and based on the work you're doing now, we're going to get behind you and support you.
We had to take a hard look at what the theater, how it was operating, and really cut away, and in many cases completely start over. And we changed the shape of our season. We reached out, and I have to give a shout out to our crew who were incredible in coming forward with help and ideas about how to make the theater more economical and financially successful. And the goal was, at that time, was never to compromise the quality, but to find a new business model that we could operate, still provide the services we did, which is not only the main stage. We have incredible main stage season of plays and musicals, which are of grand Broadway scale, but also our education programs. We have education and outreach programs that reach over 35,000 students across the entire state of New Jersey in every county.
Impressive.
So how can we find a business model that the community can help support and that we can operate in a financially responsible way? And so it's taken, we're still in an evolution process. I said we referred to that time around 2007, 2008 as the crisis. Now I like to say we're in our renaissance phase.
I like that. I like that.
But paper mill, this new paper mill, I think of as kind of an adolescent. I really think we're only about 8 years old. We had to start over, and the big thing was obviously the Township of Millburn and helping us retire that debt. But then that didn't stop the problem. We had to figure out how to create a new business model that worked. And what we did was, as I said earlier on, my goal was early on, paper mill in the past had operated kind of as an isolated little fiefdom up on a hill, and that served the organization very well for many years, but that is not the way to operate in today's economy or arts environment. And so I wanted to create partnerships. And so I reached out to other not-for-profit theaters, to other arts organizations. We partner with the Visual Arts Center of New Jersey. We had a long-standing partnership with New Jersey Ballet. I reached out to other organizations, other not-for-profit theaters around the country. How can we partner? What can we do together? And the big change was I actively started seeking these commercial partnerships. And that served many things. We were trying to bring in higher profile artists, directors, and new projects, new work. We were finding that just doing Oklahoma and My Fair Lady over and over wasn't building the audience. So what would get them excited? Great new work that I could identify that I felt spoke to our audience.
Right.
And then these partnerships, which started actually in 2000, I think it was 2008, I can't remember, a project called Happy Days based on the television series, which we worked with commercial producer Bob Boyette and Gary Marshall. And that was actually the first show of the new season of Paper Mill after the crisis. Happy Days was a great sort of way to kick that off. And that started the ball rolling of people looking at Paper Mill as a place to premiere new work that had its eyes either on a longer track across regional theaters, maybe a national tour, or eventually moving to Broadway. And
So a lot of creative evolution here. When you think about the business model, producing artistic director and managing director.
Yeah.
So for our audience, what does the managing director do? Are you general manager? You think more the business side, even though you're involved in the business?
Well, I think it's a great partnership because we both work. Mark is, unlike many artistic directors, he understands the entire business and the way that Paper Mill operates in a way that, because he's lived through it, that nobody else does.
Right. You've seen
So-
all the different aspects,
yeah,
right?
well,
Yeah,
and we
he's
had
been
to
through
we
it
had to
all.
build it. We had to build it. So, yeah.
So
You
yeah,
might
if
be
you
onto
draw
a new
the
model
straight,
here.
if you try to draw the pyramid, Mark is in charge of all the artistic programming and educational ideas and the big thinking that goes on, and I'm there to support those ideas and to get the business working and to make sure the community is involved. And I think what's been great about this relationship, but also about the organization, is that there's a team working to make sure we're making the most effective organization we can and serving our community. And it's been really, Mark understands this community like nobody else, and so his programming has just led to more and more people being excited about what we're doing at Paper Mill and having a greater impact in our community. And so it's been reaching out from that little isolated world
Right.
Mark talked about to becoming this real regional theater that's important not only to Millburn, but to our surrounding area, to the entire state, and now through some of the work we're doing throughout the entire country and world.
Yeah. And Todd's right. I think teamwork's a big key. We have an incredible senior management team. We all try to work together to make sure that whatever is best for the organization, not one individual department and certainly not one individual person. We have an incredible board of trustees who, again, they shepherd the organization, and their goal is what is best for the organization. We're in the middle of a strategic plan right now, trying to look forward about how do we continue to grow the organization, bringing in the rest of the staff, our crew, our union crew who are always have the best for the theater at heart, and how do we make those things happen as efficiently and as cost effectively as possible. All of that, I think it's a mindset, like we talked about earlier, about working together. It's no one person. It truly does take a village, and in this term it means the village of Millburn too.
Absolutely.
But also the village of New Jersey. We really rely on the state government and arts funding and individual donors. The donors are so important. I think so many people don't realize that we are a not-for-profit theater, a charity. We cannot live off ticket sales alone. You walk into a theater, you think, wow, the show's sold out, they're doing great. Well, that doesn't come close to supporting all the work we do. And the part that's we need those donations for are the outreach programs, our Adopt a School program, bringing the arts to underserved communities, reaching out all across the state. That requires people who care and believe the arts is important to step up and to help us. And the way they help really is by writing a check.
So a two-part question for both of you. If you go back a few years ago, did you ever realize you'd have a success of this magnitude on your hands, number one? And what do you do for the next act?
That's isn't that the big question? Yeah.
Coming back from the brink is one thing,
Right.
But here you are sitting on the top of the hill.
Yeah.
What next?
Well, I think for me the answer is no. We didn't see this coming. We were planning and working diligently to get there, and now it becomes about how do you manage success and continue to grow our impact within our community.
Right.
And so I think there's a huge future and great opportunity for Paper Mill to continue to transform lives through theater classes, through theater education, through main stage programming, through all the work we do, through, as Mark said, through our access programs, our autism-friendly performances. Everything that we're doing is here to serve our community.
I agree, and I think one of the things we talked about earlier was that idea of humility and being humble, which is Paper Mill's enjoyed incredible success. Paper Mill over the course of its life since 1938 has been fortunate enough to enjoy many waves of success, and we're enjoying a new wave of success. But I think the key to it is to remain humble and to keep working at the things we know are important. Training and developing children and giving them the opportunities to become expressive, poised individuals who are, sympathetic, empathetic, that to help grow our nation. Of course, we'd love to, spawn the next Anne Hathaways and Shanice Williams and all of those fabulous people, Nikki
Which
James,
you have,
Laura
right?
Benanti.
Yeah.
Right, but those are the unique situations. We want to make good kids who feel confident about themselves, who will become great lawyers and compassionate doctors and giving teachers and great parents, right? That's what the arts can do. And so we want to keep our heads down. We want to keep working. We want to keep producing great musical theater and straight plays with fantastic partners like Disney and the Dodgers and all of those people, and continue to grow our impact. How can we make ourselves more important and more vital to the Millburn Short Hills community, to the state of New Jersey? What are those things that we can do that change lives? One of the things I think we haven't talked about yet is our access programs. Paper Mill was the first theater in the country. We premiered open captioning. We were the first theater in the country to offer an autism-friendly performance. And now we're one of the leaders in the country of that movement. And we share our knowledge and our experience because we want more people to be involved in that. What are those things? Where can we make a difference through the arts? Putting on great shows and great entertainment and seeing standing ovations and, people buying tickets, all of that's incredible. But like we said earlier, you and I were talking about Sondheim, and one of the things that I think he said, when we leave this world, the two most important things we leave behind are children and art. So how can we make the best children who will keep the society moving forward, and how can we make the most impactful art that will continue to tell the story about the human experience and why we need to support each other?
It's a powerful mission, and your living philosophy that has been Millburn-centric, state-centric. Now you've gotten pulled across the river, across the Hudson into Broadway. You're launching things nationally. It shows you the power of a mission and philosophy finally honed.
And it's truly internationally, because we have projects that premiered with us, Hunchback of Notre Dame, which was a project we did with La Jolla Playhouse and Disney Theatrical, our good friends with Disney. It now has a production that's going to be in Japan. There's one in, I think it's in Oslo. There's several across the country. And, you know, that wasn't our intent. Our intent was to make the best show that spoke to our audience and served those creatives. But like you said, there's an incredible ripple effect that happens when you create good art.
I would think, given the success that you have and continue to grow, I would think other theaters, not just other organizations, are saying, what the world's going on here? What is it that you're doing?
Well, we hope so.
But you're very humble about this magic you're creating.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we're here to serve the community and to break down barriers to theater, and so everyone can participate.
Yeah.
All right.
And, you know, the more we can do that,
So to your
the
point,
happier we
everyone,
are.
I mean, not that I personally at this phase of my life would, but how do I get involved with the paper mill?
Oh, there's lots of opportunities to be involved. We have, you know, you can be involved as, the simplest way to be involved is to take a class or buy a ticket to a show, become a subscriber.
Right.
To become a subscriber is the simplest way to be involved. On top of that, we have what we call our super subscribers, which are subscribers who also donate. To write a check and give a donation and support the work that we do, that allows us to continue to affect people's lives. We're always looking for people who want to be active in, we have a volunteer force, we have a board of trustees that's trying to grow, we have, you know, tons of opportunities.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities, and
Yep.
I think people just have to show their interest, and we're there to follow through on
Yeah,
it.
we'll find a place for you if
Yeah.
you're really interested. We'll find a good place.
All right,
for
okay,
you.
this is good. This is all good news.
So
And-
when are you getting involved?
Well, sometime later today.
Okay, good.
All right. The things you're doing, though, the youth you're bringing in, how do I get involved as a young aspiring performer or
Well,
director
Okay.
or managing director?
Director's harder. And actually, what we've been trying to do, though, is the business administration side is hard, and it's only recently that in universities that they're actually
Yeah,
really
they're starting
teaching.
programs.
There was no program when I was a kid.
No, when I was
So-
coming up, everybody in my positions at my age learned it doing it.
Right.
Okay.
There weren't college programs really established to
Right.
spit out the next managing
Out of the
director.
frying pan and into
Right.
the fire. So we're trying to mentor and speak to young people who are interested in that as much as we can. And we don't have a lot of opportunities for that, but we're trying to open the doors for that.
Yeah, there's internships, there's
Yeah.
other possibilities. People find all kinds of ways to get involved.
Right.
Well, you might just see my name coming in
That's
for
fine.
application as well.
But as a young performer, we have a theater school, which we have classes that are open to all abilities and all ages. We have a senior acting class,
Okay.
which is pretty incredible. Some great ladies and gentlemen of a certain age who are passionate and talented and excited.
Wonderful.
But we have, you know, you can go to our website, www.papermill.org, and find a lot of ways for young people who, whether they want to dabble in the arts or whether they really want to pursue this seriously. We have programs for high school kids, middle school kids, and now we have a college prep program, which instructs kids on, it's so hard to get into a college now. You have to be invited to even audition
Wow.
to get into possibly into a program. So we're trying to follow the times with that too. So there's lots of things
That's
available.
superb. Wish we had more time. We're out of time.
Oh.
Where did it all
Oh,
go?
all
But
right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your success
you.
on the regional Tony that was bestowed upon you,
Very
Thanks.
nice.
and
Thank
for
you.
all future success.
Thank you
Gentlemen,
so much.
thank
Great.
you. Yeah.